Hi, my name is Prophet Muhammad, and we are having Prophet Moses in our studio. Very much warm welcome in our program. It's about spirituality and those divine secrets and topics from the Holiness Said Khan's, which is the Messiah of the age in the heart of the God. Through his teachings, we started this program to analyze more aspects with the modern science and the modern age questions and bring it all in line and share with you guys. So, welcome all of you guys, and more than welcome to bring your questions and let us know and give us your feedback. Thank you so much.
Everything is fine today for you?
Yes, everything perfect, and I'm back home.
Mm,
I was outside.
mm.
All is good. And how you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm still amazed because what we were talking about yesterday,
Yeah.
I spent a long time thinking about it, and now yesterday when I realized that it that it is written in spirituality and science in Hazur's new book, I was really amazed because
Wow.
I'm always reading like 10 pages because I'm also correcting grammar mistakes, and then literally the last page of the chapter I wanted to read was about this subject,
Ah, I see.
that prophets were the ones who were always searching for more, and uh, who wanted to know more about God, about spiritual life, who wanted to know what will happen when they die, and
After love, you're right. Yep.
it was really beautiful.
Oh, such a awesome.
Uh,
Before we start the recording, just wanted to know if
we started it.
okay, but we can cut the personal talk. Like people are gonna see it.
All right.
Hi,
Uh,
brother.
Yesterday you were asking about what will happen with those spirits, with those religious people who never asked for more. They never wanted to know more truth. What will happen to them when they go to spiritual life? Isn't it?
Yes,
Wasn't it? Yes.
that.
So that's actually that's a really good question because it's important to know in religion people mostly believe in the Abrahamic religions and also Hinduism, Buddhism, that they only think of a good world and a bad world. And in philosophy, we call that a binary standard. There's only good and only evil. And either you go to heaven or you go into hell. Or either you go into paradise or you go into hell. Religions don't know anything between it, and that's also because they don't have any observations of spiritual life. And we were talking yesterday about they the only source for spiritual or for some kind of truth is their books and their literature, but nothing more, because they themselves they can't they can't see the spiritual world, and they can't experience God. They can't experience what spiritual life is. And what is problematic, I want to tell you also about the scientific view, about the scientific problem, and because this is also discussed in Hazur's new book, Spirituality and Science. It is so common for people to believe that you can't experience spiritual life, that it is out of question for them to get to know God. It is out of question for them to experience or to see what life after death is, and to know before they die what will happen to them. It's common, they just accept that the question of God is just a question of belief. It's only a question of whether I think it's true or I think it's not true. And this is such a backward belief, because we had plenty of people in this world who brought more answers. And people actually, it's the teaching of Hazur is so easy, of Prophet Khan is so easy to understand. You yourself can see spiritual life. His main mission is only that you are able to see spiritual life. Plus, he is giving you much, much more information that even though you may have not traveled in spiritual life, that you already know what is the purpose of life. He's not just giving you the key, he is already telling you 40 years of spiritual experience he made. And but spiritual religious people and also people in general, they have a problem when they hear the name of God. And the problem is also there are less people who care about the subject. Because our life, and in many I think almost everywhere is like this. We go to school, we study, we work, and all of the studying, going to school takes much of our time. We go at least 6 hours to school, 5 days a week. We have to learn, and because we are so occupied, we don't have to ask the real questions, the inevitable questions that we have to die one day. And there's I think that's also partly that's the mistake that human beings made. They say you have to be happy in your work, you have to be happy in what you're doing, and then life is good. But life is not good. When you see life like this, that at the end you will die. Your existence you will cease to exist in some way or another. Then how can you enjoy this life? Because everything you do will vanish for you. And then there were also many philosophers and also many religious people and also common people today. They say, but I will leave an impression on this world. And that's a mistake they made, because everything they do is only in this material physical world. But they themselves, they will not be in this world anymore. And it doesn't, because right now I'm talking from the point of view if we wouldn't know what will happen after death. From this position. Because this is from where most people who will listen to this come from. Or they already have a belief about spiritual life. But in the end, they don't know. They don't exactly know because they don't have any what do you in science, what do you call it, a fact, like a result from an experiment, a result that they can base their understanding on. They don't have. They just have. Mostly people rely on authority. That people who said something about spiritual life, they believe those peoples, but they don't have anything else backing it up. Nothing substantial. There are many people who say, "I have feeling in my." I mean, to be positive is really good. But when you believe like this, you say, "I feel that Jesus has to be God." When they make false accusations, then I have to argue with them like that. That feeling, when you believe like this, that your feeling is enough to say something about God, then that's not enough. It's a good start. Don't get me wrong. It's a good start to be positive, and that's also what Athar says in his book. You have to be positive. You have to have a positive understanding about spiritual life, about God, about the question of God, not a negative one. Because a negative one would look like, why should I believe in God? Because I can't see him anyway, and I just want to live my life. That's a negative understanding. A positive understanding would be, I'm open for new information. I want to know more, but I don't know from where to get it. And that's where spiritual life and God, they can start working with you, and they will lead you. But for some it takes more time, for some it takes less time. Because each human being is different. and you each and every human being has their own individual value in the eyes of God. But that also means that there are some people um, for whom it is easier, or for where the spiritual world can work better with one than other people. But that's in the end, spiritual world can work with everyone. But because we are in a fallen state, they have to work relatively. Because people sometimes don't understand what relatively means. Hazu always says the providence of God and is always absolute. It means there's only one standard that there's to be followed. But because we are so diverse, there are many more beings, and each and every human being isn't the same. Spiritual world has to compromise. They have to find a way to work with you on a certain basis that we can understand. I brought you the example of Qadi Abdul Jilani. God was absolute. He was direct with Qadi Abdul Jilani. He said there are new prophets, and Muhammad made a mistake. But because God is absolute, and he spoke so truthfully to Qadi Abdul Jilani, Jilani didn't want to listen. Because many people, they need, we say we talk out of the flower. They need it in a nice way, and in a way maybe from their religious understanding. But that is not how God wants to work. Because when we speak like this, that we may compromise through their religion, the result will also be tainted with this religion, with this belief. And there were many people in history who argued like that. Do you know, for example, I mean, there are many examples. We can take Joseph Smith. He is the founder of Mormonism. And he was a Christian himself, but he went into many compromises with other churches. Oh no, Francis of Assisi is a better example. Francis of Assisi, even though spiritual world told him that he should reform the church, many people got to know his vision, and the news of his vision went to the Pope, in Rome, and the Pope didn't like it. He said, either you will bow before me, or I will throw you out of the church. And Francis of Assisi, he said, oh no, when I'm not part of the church, I'm not part of God. And he compromised with the Pope. He compromised with a person that himself didn't have any spiritual revelations. He never had any dreams. This Pope, in the Middle Ages, popes were even worse than warlords. They slept with children. They had many women, even though they themselves said that they wouldn't have any women. They misused money, and they themselves lived a luxurious life while other people were dying. They were misusing their power. And someone like this said to Francis of Assisi, who was led by angels, you have to bow before me. The Pope should have bowed before Francis of Assisi. He should have been thankful that there is someone in this world that God is trying to work with. But no, Francis of Assisi, he bowed before the Pope, and that's why only a minor, like a new sect, came out of Christianity, because Francis of Assisi was not ready to sever the connection to Christianity, because then he could have become a new prophet. He could have even become a Messiah. He was able to bring the kingdom of God, but because he compromised with his religion, spiritual world could only work relatively, meaning they tried to bring something better, but not something perfect, because perfect is always God's will. And they wanted to bring something that makes it easier later on to bring the world of God through. Because angels, they are not optimistic, they are realistic. They know the bad habits of human beings. They know their errors. They know what they are doing wrong. And on this basis, they know that the kingdom of God can't come. And that's why they try their best, but they know it won't succeed. It's like when you build a car, you know this car has certain limitations, and each and every year they bring a better product out. It's more safe, but it's not the perfect car, because accidents still happen. Plus, there are many more complications, but we'll talk about that later on. So, spiritual world needs someone who is willing to give everything up. And Hazur gave everything up. He left his country. He said, if God wants it like this, I will leave my country. He left the love of his life. He said, if God wants that, I should do that. And he left it. He left his religion. Even though he grew up, I think the first 16 years of his life with Islam. He said, if God wants that, I will leave my religion. And at this point, he was further than Qadi Abdul Jilani. He was further than any mufti. He was on the same level as the prophets who left their religion and were ready to follow the will of God. See, for us, like for common people who don't have any, I don't want to point to me because I have my experiences with spiritual life, as you do as well. But for common people who don't have anything, with in common to do with spiritual life, who never got any experiences, those people are crazy, because they give their life for something that might not be there. They give their life for something where result won't be there, maybe. But that's also something I admire, because we human beings have this quality to be also irrational, to give our life for something where seemingly you won't get anything out of it. But you will get something out of it, because you know, I know, and many of our members know, and also many people in Pakistan know, because they have also made their spiritual experiences, that there is something. It's only a secret at the beginning, but only at the beginning. Because then dreams come, visions come. You will see spiritual life. You will see how light comes to you, and you will also be taken out of your body, and then you will come into spiritual world without dying. But that's something people, human beings are like this. As long as they didn't experience something, they say, I don't want to believe in it. After they experienced it, they say, how was that possible? Because, and now comes, I wrote another paper that human beings, and also in this 21st century, and also in science, people want to explain everything, each and every detail. And that's the error of mind, because our mind is like a horse. When you read the book, when you read the introduction, the first chapters of spirituality and science, it's about this mind, this rational mind, that is always trying to figure everything out, and it's described as a wild horse. You are the rider of this horse, but your mind is independent, and that's why it's like a wild horse and won't listen to you. It goes in this, it goes right, it goes left. Sometimes it wants to drink something, and it will run away in a completely other direction. And that's something what religions try to get a hold of. For example, in Buddhism, they try to make this mind calm like water. Because in some religions, they they are on this level that they are on this first step to make a body follow mind, and then to make mind calm. But after this second step, after mind, comes the third key, or this third step, where our spiritual senses open. Mind follows consciousness, and that's where we leave the realm of religion. That's where, for example, that's when Baba Nanak said, when you are in front of God, you won't belong to any religion, because this is the moment he was able to use the third key to open the door, and angels and spiritual world were able to show him the spiritual life. Human beings always work like this. As long as they didn't experience something, they don't believe in it. Just imagine we wouldn't be able to feel love, to feel compassion for one another. And I'm only talking about this feeling of love. And there was only one man who would have this feeling. How could he describe love to others who never felt love? It's almost impossible. He can try. He can use many different words. But there's something missing, and that's the experience. We call that in philosophy the phenomenological quality of an experience. The experience of experiencing something. For example, and maybe that's easier also for people to understand, the color red can be described in many ways. We can say a tomato is red. It is. We can say red has feels like, or looks a bit, or feels like angriness, but it doesn't describe the phenomenological qualities. It is how red looks, the color of red. When you describe color to a blind person or to a colorblind person who have never seen colors, they will maybe understand there is something that they themselves never experience and that other people are able to experience, but they won't know how red at the end looks. You have to see red to know exactly how red looks. And that's what we call the phenomenological quality of an experience. Maybe that's a hard sentence, but it is somehow. It is somehow, or it is. I have to translate it because I have my philosophy lectures in German, so it is somehow to experience something, and that's the quality we, as beings, have. We can experience this world, and we can understand it in a way that a computer can't, because a computer isn't existing. Another example, we can say in the through physics we can say red has a certain wavelength, it has certain physical properties. We can also say from an art perspective, it's the mixture of this and this color, etc., etc. But at the end, to be able to experience red is only possible as a being and when you experience it. And that's the same with spiritual life. Prophets always try to describe how spiritual life looks. And sadly, they didn't talk so much about spiritual life. But even when they talked about spiritual life, about God, people always stayed on this theoretical level. Hazur always calls this theoretical level, where we, for example, we learn the properties of red. That is, for example, that it has a certain wavelength. But people don't understand that they themselves should also experience. And that's something that they don't do in religion. They are not ready to experience spiritual life, God, life after death, angels, etc. They don't want to do that. And if someone says to them, oh, it is possible, then they instantly say, no, it's not possible, either because we didn't experience or because other people said we can't experience. They always rely on other people, and when they don't rely on other people, they say, I have never experienced, so it can't be true. But it's the same as to say, oh, Africa doesn't exist because I've never been there. That's ignorance in its finest. Oh, America doesn't exist because I've never been there. Yeah, you have also not been on the moon, but we know that the moon exists. You have also not, there are some Arabs who only lived in the desert and who have never seen a tree in their life. But still, they know that trees exist because people have told them. And there are some Arabs who want to see a tree. And in the same way, and they want to see nature. And in the same way, when we get told that there is something more to see, spiritual life, we should want to see it for ourselves. But in a scientific way, they want to experience everything. But when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to this world that is not material, people have some kind of problem. And that's always, I always remember the sentence from Lucifer: I have smeared their eyes with fat, and I have smeared their ears with fat. So when they see, and when they will, when this message comes to them, they won't be able to hear. And when they will see this message, they won't be able to see it. And they don't want to see it because they are my children. And when you read the introduction of God reveals himself to mankind as a visible God, Hazur, Prophet Khan also said, human beings, they have loose screws, but Lucifer's screws already fell out. That's the ignorance. Ignorance means that we don't want to have certain knowledge, and we are not aware of the existence of certain knowledge and also experience. Experience is really important here because that's what we try to do. We want people to experience spiritual life, but not only through books. We want them to be able to see it in a sensory way, to see it, to hear it, to smell it, to taste it, to feel it on their skin. But people, and that's also another problem of human beings. They only want to live in their day-to-day life. They have a certain rhythm of life. They wake up, they go to work, they come from work, they eat something, they watch some TV, like television, and then they go back to sleep. And they live like an animal, basically. They have a certain rhythm, and rarely they do something that is outside of this realm. For example, when we for the first time went on the streets to give this book, I felt close in my heart. I didn't know how will people react. I said, what will other people maybe think of me? And you know, people don't want to have this narrow feeling in their heart, this unpleasant feeling. They always want to feel pleasant. But it was after this experience that I recognized that prophets and that only those people who changed something in this world, they went daily through this unpleasant feeling. They didn't live a life of routine. They lived a life that made them feel unpleasant, but they knew it is for the best of everyone and everything. And for example, there are many people who want to do something for God, but they are not ready to go on the street. But God said you have to go on the street. and be in public, because that also schools us. Because many people have a wrong perception about this world. They say, as long as we believe, everything will be all right. Because they don't want to feel unpleasant. They don't want to be in unpleasant situations. They only want to have lovely atmospheres, and that's what you most commonly see in religions. They have a nice atmosphere. They believe in life after death, but they have never experienced it. Because we don't want to have new experiences. There are less people who want to have new experiences. There are even less people who want to have experiences with spiritual life and with God, and there are even less people who do it at the end. And those people who do it are the prophets, or at least saints. And that also explains why there were so less prophets in history. There are some people who honestly, like when we give booklets, they call me, they ask me, so why can't God work with me? And sometimes I would like to say directly to them, because you don't want to have, because you have your own view on God, and you want to be God in a way that He isn't. You have your own perception, and you want to stuff God in your frame of belief. But God isn't like this. That's the problem of religion. They have a certain perception of God, how God has to be. But something science taught us is that reality is not like we want. It isn't. History is not like we want. History can also be sometimes chaotic. But that's also the beauty of life, that life is not always as we believe it. Because if life would only be as we believe it, then life would be boring. If everything would go according to our imagination. Just because I don't want to compare life to a game, but just imagine when you play a game, but you don't have to follow the rules. You could do everything what you want. Then this game wouldn't make fun, because sometimes fun also comes through the limitations we have. And that's why we also admire people who exceed those limitations, who break those limitations, where we thought of that people couldn't break them. And prophets are people who broke those limitations, because common people thought, oh, there's only this material world around us. But prophets were those who said, no, that's not true. There is a completely different life, who is much more diverse, which is much more difficult to understand, but much more interesting to see than this world. And people always said, oh, but we ourselves have never seen it. But prophets always prophets should have tried. Most of the time they didn't. They should have tried to also open them spiritually up. But people were really stubborn. And I mean, they tried everything. They gave their best. But people didn't want to. And then because they themselves were also just human beings. Prophets are also just human beings. That's another misconception of Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. They think that prophets are special people. No, they're people like you and me. Mankind has, or human beings have this. They have this problem of. They try to put everyone and everything on a pedestal. Who did something greater than them. But they don't realize that they themselves can also do it. And sometimes it goes so far that they believe they can't do it. Only for those people it was possible. But that's not true. They themselves can meet God. And we are living proof. You met God 13 times. I met God 2 times. I mean, one time is enough. To travel one time in spiritual world was enough, for example, for Buddha to reform Hinduism, to be a prophet of God, because Buddha himself, it seems like he actually never really met God, because he strived for self-enlightenment. But still, this one experience was enough for him to change the world. And that also shows quality. There are some people who only need one time to reform their whole life. And that's a God-given quality, because we have a free will. We are able to break out of the circle of routine, of the circle of environmental effects on us. We have this ability to change this world in a way that we can say from where did this come from? No, because it came from this God-given quality that we can change our life 180 degrees. And in this way, we can be like God. God is not the product of any certain laws. God got him. So, just to make it more clear, in philosophy, free will is a peculiar thing, because when we see it through the lens of the 21st century, every time we make a decision and we understand the free will as something that allows us to completely break every physical law, then every decision you make would be a breaking of the physical laws, basically. And there are scientists who don't want to believe that. And they say, no, free will is an illusion. And that's why it's even more special when we see the free will as something like this, that we are able to break those physical laws, those boundaries that have been laid upon us, because we have certain limitations as in our human life. I mean, we can calculate as fast as a computer. We have certain strength limitations. And I mean, not everyone can be an Einstein, can come to certain ideas, but we have the possibility. We have the possibility to grow in this direction. But we have an even more and even more special talent. We are able to come close to the one who created everything. And through that, we can not only understand everything, we can also experience everything. Yes, brother.
Thank you, brother. Sorry to interrupt you. You could have finished what I was saying. I'm sorry. After that, can we take like a minute and a half break?
Yes, I mean, I was I think I'm finished now. I finished.
Okay, we'll take a 1 minute break.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for having break, and we'll meet you in next minute and a half.
All right. Okay. So I started recording, and so the last things I would like to say is, before we talk about how religious people, how spiritual life will look, they should know that they actually, normally I shouldn't tell them. Not like I shouldn't. I mustn't tell them, because I want them to experience it too. So everyone who listens to it now, I want you, the person who listens, I want you to be able to see in which dimension you will go, in where you will end up in spiritual world. And you can do that in order, when you take time for yourself in the evening, you reflect upon, no matter from where you come, if you believe in God or if you don't believe in God. Every one of you can make it like put his hands together. Some pray like this, some pray like this, some pray like this. But prayers normally something is only where you talk with God. You don't have to put your hands like this, but like this position is good because many people, they like to move in prayer. And this position is especially good because it forces you not to move your hands. And you can ask God yourself, God, there's this one man, Zahid Khan, he says that he is a prophet. Could you please tell me if he is really a prophet? And then secondly, can you please show me how my spirit looks? And if I would die today, where would I end up in spiritual life? And many of you will get an answer in the first night. Many you have to pray this several days because there are some people who, like I explained, spiritual world can work easier, and there are some more, let's say, hard cases. And just pray this every night, and you will get an answer. You will get one. But when you got this answer, you also have a responsibility, because God and spiritual world told you what will happen with you. And now you're not just spectators. You are also people, actors. Someone, not actors in the sense of you have to make a movie, but you have to act now. And your responsibility is to help this mission. Because in the end, we all want to be with God. Each and every single one of us. Some may be more curious. Some already have a certain expectation, imagination about God. But then let's come together, see what the spiritual reality is in life after death, and then make this reality, bring this purpose that God told us on earth. But not just believe something and think that's God's will. You should be able to step into the spiritual world. And that was what Hazur is always trying to do. But many people, they don't even like to listen about this. When they already hear that he is a prophet, they want to kill him. They threaten him. But you're the same as the Jews were to Jesus. You're the same as the Arabics, the Jews and the Christians were to Muhammad. You're the same as the Hindus who behaved with Buddha in this way. You're the same people who behaved with Joseph Smith in this way. And you're the people who were always against prophets who were sent by God. But you can change. And you have the possibility of this change. And if you take one thing with you from today, then that it is possible to meet God. It is, in your lifetime. You don't have to die. And our brother here, Muhammad, he met God in the first 6 days. And you can do too. And that's my message for you. And I wish you all a blessed day and hopefully some beautiful experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Moses, to explaining all spiritual guidance. And I hope our listener will like to have more deep interest and influence through the teachings of Holiness Said Khan, and they will bring some more questions out of their minds, and they will let us know. And definitely we'll come back tomorrow or some other day with our new topic. Please have a lovely and contagiously blessed evening, and we'll see you again.
Thank you.